Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyana Gurunana Vasya Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Praptasya Kalyana Gurunana Vasya Bande Guru Shri Charanara Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Seno Kampasru Taranga Vajo Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Romanta Kampasru Taranga Vajo Bande Gurashi Shri Vigrahara Gana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramajanado Shri Gaharatana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramajanado Joktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatopi Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Joktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatopi Vande Gurashi Chatubidhashi Bhagavad Prasadam Svatana Truptam Hari Bhakta Sangam Chatubidhashi Bhagavad Prasadam Kritvaiva Trupti Vajato Sadeva Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Kritvaiva Trupti Shradhikama Dabayara Param Madhura Lila Gunarupanam Shradhikama Dabayara Param Madhura Lila Gunarupanam Pratikshana Dhanalupasya Vande Gurushi Charanara Vrindam Pratikshana Dhanalupasya Vande Gurushi Nekunja Yuno Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Veri Jukti Apechaniya Nikunja Yuno Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Veri Jukti Apechaniya Tatrati Daksha Ativalabhasya Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam Sajjadharitvena Samasta Shashrain Rukta Tathava Vyataiva Sadhavi Sajjadharitvena Samasta Shashrain Rukta Tathava Into Praborja Priya eva tasya Vande Gurashi Charanaro Vrindam Yasya Prisada Bhagavat Prisada Yasya Prisadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prisada Bhagavat Prisada Yasya Prisada Nagati Kutapi Dayam Stuvam Tasya Yasat Prisanyam Vande Gurashi Charanaro Vrindam Jayam Vande Gurashi Charanaro Vrindam Vande Gurashi Charanaro Vrindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nivishesham Shunyavadi Vatsakari Satavine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Prabhu Nityananda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare Namah, Krishna Jadavaya Namah. Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Hari Gopal Govindaram Srimadhusudam. Giridhari Gopinath मदन मोहन श्री चैतन्य नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत सीता हरे गुरु वैष्णव भगवत गीता श्री रूप सनातन भतर गुना श्री जीव गोपाल भट्ट दासर गुना श्री जीव हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गो हरि बोल Jai Mishapar Paramanta Prabhajakacharya Sutara Sarasi Srimad His Divine Grace Bhajaravina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Pratishta Viviti Samstapakacharya Vaishnava Siromani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patiti Udhar Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Vatana Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhakta Dasa Gunasap Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrini Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Se Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrind Ki Jai Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Jai Prema Nama Sankirtaneka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shman Gaurama Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaura Hari Mahavrana Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai Juga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Prihabdanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopagupna Radha Kun Samakun Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Gurajabham Vrindavan Maturdam Ki Jai Deloship Shri Radha Nilamadhav Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Navadvip Eka Chakradam Ki Jai Paramakaruna Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puridham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smaspadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Sita Ram Lakshman Bhakta Hanuman Ji Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Karishingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulasi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Maturadharani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaurari Pramanande All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories, all glories, all glory to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya
Namaste Narasingaya
Praladaladaine Praladaladaine Hiranyakashipu Lakshaha
Hiranyakashipu Lakshaha
Shilatanka Nakalai
Silatanka Nakalai
Shila Silatangka nakalai.
Jaya Silatangka nakalai.
Ito Narasimha Parato Narasimha.
Ito Nisingha Parato Nisingha.
Yeto Yamitato Narasimha.
Jaya Jata Jata Jamitato Nisingha.
Yeto Yamitato Narasimha.
Jata Jata Jamitato Nisingha.
Bahe Narasimha Hrudaye Narasimha.
Bahe Nisingha Hrudaye Nisingha.
Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapadhe.
Narasingha Madim Sharanam Prapadhe.
Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapadhe.
Narasingha Madim Sharanam Prapadhe.
Avakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shrunga. Dalita Hiranyakasipu Anubhrunga. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare.
Avakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shrunga.
Dalita Hiranyakasipu Anubhrunga. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare.
Jai Jagadisha Hare.
Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare.
Jaya Kesavadrita Narahari Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai
Jagadisha Hare. Jayo Narasimha De. Jayo Narasimha De. Jayo Narasimha De. Jayo Narasimha De.
Jaya Nisingha De. Jaya Nisingha De. Jaya Nisingha De. Jaya Nisingha De.
Jayo Prahlad Maharaj. Jayo Prahlad Maharaj. Jayo Prahlad Maharaj. Jayo Prahlad Maharaj.
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev. 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev. 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Shri Bhakti Patar Sarvignash Kani Singare Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakta Shrestha Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Gaurari Pramanande. Shri Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namaha Vrindayai Trasrivaya Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Radha Krishna Seva Pabo
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Hey Abhilasi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Hey Abhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Hey Abhilasi
Ye tomara sharanaloy Tara vancha purna ho
Je tomara saranaloy Tara vancha purna
Kripa kori koro tare Vrindavana basi
Tumi kripa kori karo tare Vrindavana basi
Morae abhilash Vilas kunje diyova
Morae avila Vilas kunje diyova
Nayane heri bosada Yugalaru parasi
Aminayane Devasada Jugala Ruparase
He nivedana daro Sakiranugata koro
Nivedana Dara Sakirayano Gatakara
Seva
कर दिए कराने दासी
दीना कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा होई
दीना कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा
दीना कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा होई
दीना कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न बासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा ये न बासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न बासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा ये न बासी
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपादे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मात्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपादे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मात्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
जय तुलसी महारानी जय वृंदा देवी जय तुलसी महारानी जय वृंदा देवी
जय तुलसी महारानी जय वृंदा देवी जय तुलसी महारानी जय वृंदा देवी
नित्याय गौर हरि बोल नित्याय गौर हरि बोल नित्याय
गौर हरि बोल नित्याय गौर हरि बोल। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवत नमो नमः। Vrindayai Tulasirivai Priyayai Kesava Satta Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasirivai Priyayai Kesava Satta Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavatai Namo Namaha. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved of Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavya of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me unmet servant. His very fallen and lowly servant Krishna praise. May I always swim in love, Shri Radha and Govinda. Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki. Mahaprabhu Sri Krishna Ki Jai. Namo Mahavaranaya Krishna Prema Krishna. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it prays the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all the transcendental energies. There is no different hard and fast rule for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. Once we chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking oneself a Lord and strong in spirit, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your custody was from service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I am fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, all with my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name. Only my voice choke up. Only the hairs on my body stand on the end with the recitation of your name. O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considered a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world and in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he should remain so, even if some draws me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri 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 Kyastakam ki. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that must be avoided. They are as follows. 1. Blaspheme the devotees who dedicate a life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature persons of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic which offer invaders as fruitive activity, karma, kanda. 9. To instruct the fearless person with the glories of holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting of the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It's also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna. Now let us offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, the devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls.
Bhagavatam Kuntaraj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Janmadyasya yato nivayat itaratas charte suavigyaswarat.
Janmadyasya yatam vayaritartas chatesva vigyasvara.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha.
Tenya Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha.
Tejo Varimadam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Tisargomasha.
Tejo Varimrita Jata Vinimayo Jatra Tisargomasha.
Dhamnasvena Sada Nirastakuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi.
Dhamnasvena Sada Nirastakuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of
O
Vasudeva.
all-pervading personality of Godhead.
O all-providing personality of
Offer
God.
my respectful obeisances unto you.
Offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute
I
truth
meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because the absolute
and the
truth,
primeval cause of all causes,
the primeval cause of all causes,
of the creation, sustenance, and destruction destruction of the manifested universes.
of the creation, sustenance, destruction, the manifested universe.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all
He is
manifestations.
directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he is independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there is no other cause.
It is he
beyond
only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji,
him. It's he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge into the heart of
the
Brahma,
original living being.
the original living being.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion,
By him, even the great sage and demigods are placed into illusion.
as one is bewildered by the illusory
As one is
representations
bewildered by the illusory representation
of water seen in fire or land seen on water.
of words in the fire, lands in the water.
Only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of him do the material universe,
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature,
appear factual although they are unreal.
appear factual, although they
I
are.
therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
which is forever free from the illusory representation of the material.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute.
Dharma Pujita Kaitravocha
Dharma Pujita Kaitavatra,
Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam
Paramo Nirmasanam Satam,
Vedyam Vastavamatra Vastu
Vedyam Vastavam Vastu,
Shivadam Tapa Trayon Mulanam
Shivadam Taputrayam,
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamani Kriti,
Kim Va Purer Ishwaraha
Kimba Paririshwara,
Sadyo Hridi Avarudyate Tra
Sadyurudya Varidyatit,
Kriti Bihi Sususabistakshanat.
Kriti Shushu Vistakyana,
Completely rejected all religious activities which are materially motivated.
completely rejecting all religious activities from material
This
motivation.
Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest
This
truths,
Bhagavad Puran propounds the high truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in their heart.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth with their reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such a truth uproots the threefold misery.
This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity,
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva is mature.
is sufficient in itself for God realization.
Is sufficient itself for God realization.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need of the other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
by this culture of knowledge,
by this course of knowledge,
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam,
Nigama kalpator galitam phalam,
sukhamukad amrita dravya samyatam,
sukamakadam rita travasangam,
pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam,
pibata bhagavatam rasamaya,
muhur aho raska bhuvi bhavakaha.
O
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam,
excellent thoughtful men, relish our Bhagavatam,
the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic
the
literatures.
mature fruit, the desired trees of Vedic
It
literature.
emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadeva Goswami.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more
Although its nectarian juice is already relishable for all,
although its nectarian juice is already refreshable for all,
including liberated souls.
including the bread soul.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna,
Shantam Swakata Krishna,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Punya Shravana Kirtan,
Hirdiyam Taksto Hiya Badrani,
Yantasto Hyabhadra,
Vidunoti Sruhitsatam.
Noti Suritsatam,
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
to hear about Krishna from Vedic literature,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita.
is itself righteous activity.
It is self-righteous activity.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And for one who hears about Krishna,
the Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's heart,
acts as a best wishing friend,
acts as the best wishing
and
friend,
purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
and purifies the body constantly engaged in hearing of him.
Nasta presu abhadresu
Nasta Praishra Bhadeshu,
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Se,
bhagavati uttamasloke
Bhagavati Uttama Sloke,
bhaktir bhavati naistake.
Bhakti Bhavati Nastiki.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, devotee naturally develops dormant transcendental knowledge.
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavad
and from the devotees,
and from the devotee,
he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
he becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord.
Tadarajastamo bhava
Tadarajastamo bhava,
Kamalobadayaschaye,
Kamalobadayaschaye,
Cheta Etayaranavidam,
Chaitayaranavidam,
Stitvam Sattve Prasidati.
Stitam Sattve Prasidati.
By development of devotional
By
service,
development of devotional
one
service,
becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
and thus material lusts and avarice are diminished.
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasana manaso
Evam prasannamanas,
Bhagavat Bhakti Yogataha
Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata,
Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam
Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam,
Mukta Sangasya Jayate.
Mukta Sangasya.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When all impurities are wiped
the
away,
candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
the candidate remains steady in his position of pure,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlightened by devotional service,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the science of God perfectly.
Vidyate Hridaya Grantis,
Vidyate Hridaya Granthi,
Siddhyante Sarvasamsaya,
Siddhyante Samsasam,
Siddhyante Chasya Karmani,
Siddhyante Sachakarmani,
Drista Eva Atmanishwari.
Krista Eva Manishwari.
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the heart not of material affection,
Thus the Bhakti Yoga serves the heart of the material
and enables one to come at once to the stage of Samsayam Samagram,
and enables one to come at once to the stage of assumption samagam,
understanding of the supreme, absolute truth, personality of Godhead.
understanding the
Only by hearing from-
supreme.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
If only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees in Krishna consciousness
can one understand the science of Krishna.
can one understand the science of Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1, Text number 5. Tasmat Bharata Sarvatmara
Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma
Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari
Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari
Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha
Shrutavya Kirtivyascha
Smartavya Chichatabayam.
Smartavya Chichatat.
Translation. O descendant of King Bharata, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the Supersoul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In the previous verse, Sri Sukadeva Goswami has described how the foolish, materially attached men are wasting their valuable time in the improvement of the material conditions of life by sleeping, indulging in sex life, developing economic conditions, and maintaining a band of relatives who are to be vanquished in the air of oblivion. Being engaged in all these materialistic activities, the living soul entangles himself in the cycle of the law of fruitive actions. This entails the chain of birth and death in the 8,400,000 species of life, the aquatics, the vegetables, the reptiles, the birds, the beasts, the uncivilized man, and then again the human form, which is the chance for getting out of the cycle of fruitive action. Therefore, if one desires freedom from this vicious cycle, then one must cease to act as a karmi, or enjoyer of the results of one's own work, good or bad. One should not do anything, either good or bad, on his own account, but must execute everything on behalf of the Supreme Lord, the ultimate proprietor of everything that be. This process of doing work is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita 9.27. Also, where instruction is given for working on the Lord's account, yat kurosi yad asnasi yad juhosi dadasi yat. Dadasi yat tapasya yat tapasya what? Yeah, yat tapasya kante yat tat kurusva madarpanam. Yeah. So, therefore, one should first of all hear about the Lord. When one has perfectly and scrutinizingly heard, one must glorify his acts and deeds, and thus it will become possible to remember constantly the transcendental nature of the Lord. Hearing about and glorifying the Lord are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord. And by so doing, one will always be in the association of the Lord. This brings freedom from all sorts of fear. The Lord is the Supersoul, Paramatma, present in the hearts of all living beings, and thus by the above hearing and glorifying process, the Lord invites the association of all in His creation. This process of hearing about and glorifying the Lord is applicable for everyone, whoever he may be, and it will lead one to the ultimate success in everything in which one may be engaged by providence. And whenever there's the word providence, it means the will of the Lord. There are many classes of human beings: the fruitive workers, the empiric philosophers, the mystic yogis, and ultimately the unalloyed devotees. For all of them, one and the same process is applicable for achieving the desired success. Everyone wants to be free from all kinds of fear, and everyone wants the fullest extent of happiness in life. The perfect process for achieving this here and now is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is uttered by such a great authority as Srila Sukadeva Goswami. By hearing about and glorifying the Lord, all a person's activities become molded into spiritual activities, and thus all conceptions of material miseries become completely vanquished. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishwaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavya Chichat Abhayam. So this is a very important verse, and it says, O descendant of King Bharata, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the Supersoul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. So that's what the purport confirms. Basically, in the end, it says, the perfect process for achieving this full extent of happiness in life, here and now, is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is uttered by such a great authority as Srila Sukadeva Goswami. By hearing about and glorifying the Lord, all a person's activities become molded into spiritual activities, and thus all conceptions of material miseries become completely vanquished. Well, the question is, do we believe this? Most people don't believe it. And even though the English is simple, most people don't understand what's being said. Although it's straightforward, and it's what everybody wants. So here's something that everybody wants, but for some reason or other, they can't understand it. Now, why is that? When it's simple English, it's direct statements, and everybody understands every word. Still, they can't understand it. Why do you think that is? Attachment to? Exactly right. That's what we read yesterday. Although he is sufficiently experienced in the matter of, by dint of past experience and previous examples of his decreased predecessors, he does not see that the so-called fighting soldiers, like the children, relatives, society members, and countrymen, are all fallible in the great struggle for existence. One should examine the fact that his father or his father's father has already died, and that he himself is therefore also sure to die, and similarly his children, who are the would-be fathers of their children, will also die in due course. No one will survive this struggle with material nature. The history of human society definitely proves it. Yet the foolish people still suggest that in the future they will be able to live perpetually with the help of material science. So it's due to this attachment to family, ethnicity, nation, relatives, all that. And so they understand the language. It's simple language. It's not complicated language. They know that this is what they want. They want to be free of all miseries and happy forever and to live eternally. But yet they won't do it. Even our own devotees are reluctant to actually do this. See? So this attachment is so powerful of, the extended family, the ethnicity, the state, the country, the neighborhood, humanity, the universe, whatever, all these purposes. And still people won't, and because of all these attachments, and there's different layers of attachments, people won't do it. So this is, so therefore, hearing about Krishna and glorifying the Lord is absolutely essential. And we have the example of what happens if we do this in the example of Bhisma Pitamaha. He says, in the first canto, 9th chapter, 40th verse, he says, "Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Shri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Rajadama, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the rasa dance." So, this is the explanation of basically what you would call spiritual sex. It has nothing to do with material sex, which is based on plumbing. This is a different type of ecstasy, and it's not achieved in the same way as the so-called mundane sex. So, in the purport, Prabhupada says, by intense ecstasy and loving service, the damsels of Rajabhumi attained qualitative oneness with the Lord by, 1, dancing with him on an equal level, 2, embracing him in nuptial love. Yeah, sometimes there's hugging and kissing. Smiling at him in joke and looking at him with loving attitude. So this is the way the gopis attain qualitative oneness with the Lord. This is different than the Mayavadi's so-called oneness. The relation of the Lord with Arjuna is undoubtedly praiseworthy for devotees like Bhismadeva. But the relation of the gopis with the Lord is still more praiseworthy because of their still more purified loving service. So now there's this comparison of Arjuna's relationship with the Lord and the gopis' relationship. And Prabhupada is explaining that the gopis' relationship is still more purified loving service. By the grace of the Lord, Arjuna was fortunate enough to have the fraternal service of the Lord as chariot driver. But the Lord did not award Arjuna with equal strength. The gopis, however, practically became one with the Lord by attainment of equal footing with the Lord. How did they do that? By dancing with him, embracing him, smiling at him in joke, and looking at him with loving attitude. Bhisma's aspiration to remember the gopis is a prayer to have their mercy also at the last stage of his life. The Lord is satisfied more when his pure devotees are glorified, and therefore Bhismadeva has not only glorified the acts of Arjuna, his immediate object of attraction, but has also remembered the gopis who were endowed with unrivaled opportunities for rendering loving service to the Lord. This is why Bhismadeva is a Mahajan. He's not only meditating on Arjuna and his relationship with Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Krishna is his chariot driver, Arjuna's ordering him to do this, do that. But he's remembering the gopis. See? And their super excellent relationship with the Lord. The gopis' equality with the Lord should never be misunderstood to be like the Sayuja liberation of the impersonalists. The equality is one of perfect ecstasy, where the differential conception is completely eradicated, for the interests of the lover and the beloved become identical. Okay, so here there's a little complicated language when it says differential conception. That means that one has a different understanding than the other. Okay, so like for example, when, let's say, there's a man and woman. So the man has one conception and the woman has another conception in their married life. And that comes up over time. And then in the beginning, a couple is married and they both think that they have the same conception of, what's going to happen in the future. They're going to live happily ever after. But as time goes on, it becomes apparent that the wife's understanding and the husband's understanding of their relationship and what is happiness and what is their goal in life can be diametrically different, can be completely different. And it can result in arguments and differences of opinion, like during the Trump 4 years, there were couples that, the wife was voting for Democrats and the husband was voting for Trump. It caused great havoc in their family life. And anyway, we won't go too much into that. But you see, it happens all the time where in the beginning it looks like both of them have the same idea of how they're going to be happy forever in the married life. And as time goes on, tremendous differences of opinion can come up. And it's like constantly causes, let's say, distress. The wife thinks, oh, my husband doesn't understand anything. And the husband thinks, oh, my wife doesn't understand anything. And so forth. So, but here the gopis attain equality with the Lord by perfect ecstasy, where the differential conception, in other words, different ideas of what it means to love someone, what is their goal in life, and etc. The differential conception is completely eradicated. There's no more difference of opinion. The gopis' only desire is to please the Lord, and the Lord's only desire is to reciprocate that relationship. So they both have the same desire, that is to please the pleasure of Krishna. There's no other desire. See, so a wife, in the material sense, can maybe have such a desire in the beginning, but as time goes on, she might see all kinds of selfishness or some faults in the husband, and the husband may see some faults in the wife, and then they develop completely opposite conceptions. But in this equality by perfect ecstasy, where the differential conception is completely eradicated, for the interests of the lover and the beloved become identical. In other words, the interests of Krishna and the interests of the gopis are identical. So this is an unimaginable state of consciousness, because we're all living in duality. And for us to completely surrender ourselves, it's almost out of the question. I mean, there can be partial surrender, but to completely surrender like the gopis. That's why even Bismadev recognizes that yes, Arjuna's relationship with Krishna is very, very special. But even more intense is the relationship of the gopis with Krishna. And because he's remembering he's remembering Arjuna, obviously, but he's also remembering the gopis, it proves that he wants to get the gopis' mercy. So, this is, there are other purports like this in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, explaining this oneness with the Lord through perfect ecstasy, where there's no longer any difference in opinion between the lover and the beloved, and the manifestation of what might be called spiritual sex. It's not in terms of the mundane concept. It's much more, let's say, intense, there's always the element of love in separation, which is stronger than love in proximity. And then whenever the gopis see Krishna, or the wives of Krishna see him, usually the wives of Krishna and Dwarka, they're on the roofs of the buildings. And when Krishna is going on procession, maybe he'll be leaving Dwarka for some time, the wives exchange, like embrace him with their eyes and smile at him and look at him with loving attitudes, and they feel intense separation seeing him leave Dwarka. This is also explained. We're going to read about that in a minute. So that Vipralamba Bhava is a greater feeling or emotion than love in proximity. Okay, so to hear about Krishna, this is something that we have to cultivate, and that's why Prabhupada wrote the Krishna book. So the Krishna book is an unbelievable transcendental delineation of Krishna's daily activities and Krishna's relationships with his different types of devotees. It's much more profound than what we may think. But as if we develop a taste for hearing it, then it transports our consciousness from mundane things to spiritual things. So, chapter 70, we began it yesterday, but we'll begin it again. It says, from the Vedic mantras, we learn that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has nothing to do, natasya karyam karanam chavidyate. But if the Supreme Lord has nothing to do, how can we speak of the activities of the Supreme Lord? From the previous chapter, it is clear that no one can act the way Lord Krishna does. We should clearly note this fact. The activities of the Lord should be followed, but they cannot be imitated. For example, Krishna's ideal life as a householder can be followed. But if one wants to imitate Krishna by expanding into many forms, that is not possible. We should always remember, therefore, that Lord Krishna, although playing the part of a human being, simultaneously maintains the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is a key statement. We should meditate on this statement because materialists, when they hear about Krishna's pastimes, they think, oh, he's like us. And when they hear that, he, as a baby, he sucked out the life of Putana, and then she expanded into a 12-mile-long demon, they think, oh, this is all hyperbole, this is all fantasy, it's not real. What's real is, whenever Krishna acts as an ordinary human being, they say, oh, well, he's like us. And whenever he does something extraordinary, they don't believe it. Right. But here Prabhupada explains that we should always remember, therefore, that Lord Krishna, although playing the part of a human being, simultaneously maintains the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We can follow Lord Krishna's dealings with his wives as an ordinary human being, but his dealings with more than 16,000 wives at one time cannot be imitated and cannot be understood. You know, you could say 16,000 or 1,600 or 16 million. It doesn't make sense to the karmi. You'll say, I can't believe this. Because he can't do it. He doesn't think Krishna can do it. But what's throwing him off is when Krishna acts as an ordinary human being. So he can't imagine that this ordinary human being, well, he can understand Krishna as an ordinary human being. He cannot understand Krishna, can simultaneously manifest his activities as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's just too much for them to understand, and because of their enviousness of the Lord. They don't envy him when he acts like an ordinary human being. When Rama is running around the forest with tears in his eyes saying, Sita, where are you? Where are you? People can understand that, you know. But when Rama builds a bridge from Rameshwar to Rameshwaram to Lanka, and does it by floating stones, they think this is a bunch of nonsense. You know, how is that possible? Or Rama single-handedly kills 16,000 Rakshasas. Each Rakshasa is like 18, 20 feet tall and has the power of, unbelievable powers. They can't believe it. Yeah. So this is called mutually contradictory qualities. Krishna has mutually contradictory qualities. He can be very far away and very near at the same time. He can be one person and at the same time manifest himself as 16,000 persons, to be with each wife in Dwarka separately and have 10 children with each wife and a different palace for each wife. They can't deal with such statements. Well, they deal with it. They say it's fantasy. It's made up. It's not possible. The conclusion is that to become ideal householders, we should follow in the footsteps of Lord Krishna as he displayed his daily activities, but we cannot imitate him at any stage of our life. We can follow his example, but we cannot imitate him. And now we're going to hear what that means. Lord Krishna used to lie down with his 16,000 wives, but he would also rise from bed very early in the morning, 3 hours before sunrise. By nature's arrangement, the crowing of the cocks warned of the Brahma Muhurta hour. There's no need of alarm clocks. As soon as the cocks crow early in the morning, it is to be understood that it is time to rise from bed. Hearing that sound, Krishna would get up from bed, but his rising early was not very much to the liking of his wives. The wives of Krishna were so much attached to him that they would lie in bed embracing him. And as soon as the cocks crowed, Krishna's wives would be very sorry and would immediately condemn the crowing. In the garden within they're not condemning Krishna, they're condemning the crowing of the cocks. In the garden within the compound of each palace, there were parijata flowers. The parijata is not an artificial flower. We remember that Krishna brought the parijata trees from heaven and implanted them in all his palaces. Early in the morning, a mild breeze would carry the aroma of the parijata flower, and Krishna would smell it just after rising from bed. Due to this aroma, the honeybees would begin their humming vibration, and the birds would also begin their sweet chirping sounds. So in our Hawaii temple, we have a night-blooming jasmine tree right near the entrance. And when you walk out of the temple, the fragrance of that night-blooming jasmine tree alarms you. It's so intoxicating and nectarine. So there are trees like this. So imagine the parijata flower is even greater than the night-blooming jasmine, you know, and it doesn't exude its fragrance at night. It does it during the early Brahma Muhurta hour. So you see, there are different degrees of fragrant flowers and different qualities. One is effusing its very nice fragrance at night. The other one is doing it at the Brahma Muhurta hour. And it's the first olfactive sensation that Krishna has. So you see, there are many mysterious things in this world. And it takes a little while to start realizing some of them. So altogether, it would sound like the singing, that is the humming of the bees and the chirping of the birds. Altogether, it would sound like the singing of professional chanters engaged in offering prayers to Krishna. That is, the birds and the bees, right? Although Srimati Rukmini Devi, the first queen of Lord Krishna, knew that Brahma Muhurta is the most auspicious time in the entire day, she would feel disgusted at the appearance of Brahma Muhurta because she was not very happy to have Krishna leave her side in bed. Despite Srimati Rukmini Devi's disgust, Lord Krishna would immediately get up from bed exactly on the appearance of Brahma Muhurta. An ideal householder should learn from the behavior of Lord Krishna how to rise early in the morning, however comfortably he may be lying in bed, embraced by his wife. So, what's the takeaway? We should all get up early in the morning. And he's talking about 3 hours before the sunrise. And that means you have to take rest pretty early. After rising from bed, Lord Krishna would wash his mouth, hands, and feet, and would immediately sit down and meditate on himself. This does not mean, however, that we should also sit down and meditate on ourselves. We have to meditate upon Krishna. Radha Krishna. That is real meditation. Krishna, so not just Krishna alone, but Radha Krishna together. Krishna is Krishna himself, therefore he was teaching us that Brahma Muhurta should be utilized for meditation on Radha Krishna. By such meditation, Krishna would feel very much satisfied, and similarly, we will also feel transcendently pleased and satisfied if we utilize the Brahma Muhurta period to meditate on Radha and Krishna. So if we want to be transcendentally pleased and transcendentally satisfied, we should meditate in the morning time or in the Brahma Muhurta time on Radha Krishna. That's why we come to the temple for Mangala Aarti. And who do we see? We see Radha and Krishna. We see Sita and Ram. And so we see Jagannath Subhadra Baladev. We see Gaur Nitai. We see Prabhupada. We see Tulsi. So this is amazing, the way Prabhupada has given us the opportunity to live like Krishna in Dwarka and experience these transcendental emotions. And if we think of how Sri Rukmini Devi and Krishna acted as ideal householders to teach the whole human society to rise early in the morning and immediately engage in Krishna consciousness, there is no difference between meditating on the eternal forms of Radha and Krishna and chanting the Mahamantra Hare Krishna. As for Krishna's meditation, he has no alternative but to meditate on himself. The object of meditation is Brahman, Paramatma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but Krishna himself is all three. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. The localized Paramatma is his plenary partial expansion, and the all-pervading Brahman effulgence is the personal rays of his transcendental body. Therefore, Krishna is always one, and for him, there's no differentiation. That is the difference between an ordinary living being and Krishna. Yeah, we can't expand ourselves as Paramatma. We can't expand ourselves as the Brahma Jyoti. We can hardly even pass stool and urine. Right? We have trouble doing that, right? So imagine expanding yourself as Paramatma. So someone declares that they're Krishna. That is the most crazy, vicious, envious thing a person could do. That's the last stage of degradation, when person declares himself as God. An ordinary living being is different from his body, and he is different from other species. And different from other human beings, and different from the animals. Even in his own body, there are different bodily limbs. We have our hands and legs, but our hands are different from our legs. The hand cannot act like the leg, nor can the leg act like the hand. The ears can hear, but the eyes cannot. And the eyes can see, but the ears cannot. All these differences are technically called swajatiya vijatiya. The bodily limitation whereby one part of the body cannot act as another part is totally absent from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's no difference between his body and himself. He is completely spiritual, and therefore there's no difference between his body and his soul. Similarly, he is not different from his millions of incarnations and plenary expansions. Baladeva is the first expansion of Krishna, and from Baladeva expand Sankarsan, Vasudeva, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And from Sankarsan, there's an expansion of Narayana. And from Narayana, there's a second quadruple expansion of Sankarsana, Vasudeva, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Similarly, there are innumerable other expansions of Krishna, but all of them are one. Krishna has many incarnations, such as Lord Nrsimha, Lord Boar, Lord Fish, and Lord Tortoise. But there is no difference between Krishna's original two-handed form, like that of a human being, and these incarnations of gigantic animal forms. Nor is there any difference between the action of one part of his body and that of another. His hands can act as his legs, his eyes can act as his ears, or his nose can act as another part of his body. Krishna's smelling and eating and hearing are all the same. We limited living entities have to use a particular part of the body for a particular purpose, but there's no such distinction for Krishna. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said, Angani yasya sakalandriya vrittimanti. Krishna can perform the activities of one limb with any other limb. So by analytical study of Krishna and his person, it is concluded that he is the complete whole. When he meditates, therefore, he meditates on himself. Self-meditation by ordinary man, designated in Sanskrit as soham, is simply imitation. This is what the Mayavadis say, soham. I am him. Krishna may meditate on himself because he is the complete whole, but we cannot imitate him and meditate on ourselves. Our body is a designation superimposed upon ourself, the soul. Krishna's body is not a designation. Krishna's body is also Krishna. There's no distinction of anything foreign in Krishna. Whatever there is in Krishna is also Krishna. He is therefore the supreme, indestructible, complete existence, or the supreme truth. So this explanation that we just read is only understandable by devotees. Other people can't understand it. And these are genuine devotees. Why? Because of their jealousy and envy of Krishna, they don't want to understand it. They don't want to think that there's someone so great that they cannot imitate them and they cannot emulate them. Say that's all the false ego. That's why you have so many so-called incarnations of God. So they have the same thing in Christianity, you have the same thing in Islam, you have the same thing in Judaism. So in Judaism, there are certain Jews that claim that they're the Messiah. In Islam, there are certain Muslims that claim that they're the Mahdi. In Christianity, there's certain people that claim that they're Jesus, and they've come back for the second time. And then in Buddhism, there's so many people that claim that they're the Buddha. So it's all based on envy and jealousy of Krishna. Krishna's existence is not relative existence. Everything else but Krishna is a relative truth, but Krishna is the supreme absolute truth. Krishna does not depend on anything but himself for his existence. Our existence, however, is relative. For example, only when there is the light of the sun, the moon, or electricity are we able to see. Our seeing, therefore, is relative, and the light of the sun and moon and electricity is also relative. They are called illuminating only because we see them as such, but dependence and relativity do not exist in Krishna. His activities are not dependent on anyone else's appreciation, nor does he depend on anyone else's help. He is beyond the existence of limited time and space, and because he is transcendental to time and space, he cannot be covered by the illusion of Maya, whose activities are limited. In the Vedic literature, we find that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has multi-potencies. Since all such potencies are emanations from him, there's no difference between him and his potencies. Certain philosophers say, however, that when Krishna comes, he accepts a material body. But even if it is accepted that when he comes to the material world, he accepts a material body, although that's not true, right? It should be concluded that because the material energy is not different from him, this body does not act materially. The body that he manifests does not act materially. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, therefore, that he appears by his own internal potency, Atma Maya. Krishna is called the Supreme Brahman because he is the cause of creation, the cause of maintenance, and the cause of dissolution. Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva are different expansions of these material qualities. All these material qualities can act upon the conditioned souls, but there is no such action and reaction upon Krishna because these qualities are all simultaneously one with and different from him. Krishna himself is simply Satchidananda Vigraha, the eternal form of bliss and knowledge, and because of his inconceivable greatness, he is called the Supreme Brahman. His meditation on Brahman or Paramatma or Bhagavan is on himself only and not on anything else beyond himself. This meditation cannot be imitated by the ordinary living being or living entity. After his meditation, the Lord would regularly bathe early in the morning with clear, sanctified water. Then he would change into fresh clothing, cover himself with a wrapper, meaning a chadar or something like that, and engage in his daily religious functions. Out of his many religious duties, the first was to offer oblations into the sacrificial fire and silently chant the Gayatri mantra. Lord Krishna, as the ideal householder, executed all the religious functions of a householder without deviation. When the sunrise became visible, the Lord would offer specific prayers to the sun god. The sun god and other demigods mentioned in the Vedic scriptures are described as different limbs of the body of Lord Krishna, and it is the duty of the householder to offer respects to the demigods and great sages as well as the forefathers. Well, we're going to see that it's necessary to wake up 3 hours before Brahma Muhurta. Look at all the things you have to do. So we can't imitate Krishna, but we should follow his example and the principles that he's laid down. As it is said in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has no specific duty to perform in this world, and yet he acts just like an ordinary man living an ideal life within this material world. In accordance with the Vedic ritualistic principles, the Lord would offer respects to the demigods. The regulative principle by which the demigods and forefathers are worshipped is called tarpana, which means pleasing. One's forefathers may have to take a body on another planet, but by performance of this tarpana system, they become very happy wherever they may be. It is the duty of the householder to make his family members happy, and by following this tarpana system, he can make his forefathers happy also. As the perfect exemplary householder, Lord Sri Krishna followed this tarpana system and offered respectful obeisances to the elderly, superior members of the family. Okay, so now, what is the tarpana for the devotees? And that is explained. Let's see here. Anyway, tarpana for the devotees is every day we offer food to Krishna. And afterwards, a grihasta should always share it. And when you share it with other Vaishnavas, that is tarpana, because there's a verse in the Vedas that say that when you feed a brahmana, that is actually feeding a genuine brahmana. That is actually feeding Krishna. So tarpana is inviting at least 3 brahmanas to your house and offering them prasadam that you have cooked and offered to Krishna. And then by the Brahmins taking the prasadam, it's equal to Krishna taking it, and then your relative receives the effect of that prasadam. And if they're not in a good situation, they immediately will be happy wherever they are, and they're usually on another planet somewhere in the universe, taking birth in another planet. But wherever they are benefited by it, and they become happy. So that is the process of tarpana. Now the karmakanda tarpana is a lot more complicated, but in ISKCON, Prabhupada taught us how to do this simplified tarpana. And tarpana means pleasing. So you're pleasing your ancestors by first pleasing Krishna. And it's all done through the agency of prasadam. One's forefathers may have to take a body on another planet, but by performance of this tarpana system, they become very happy wherever they may be. It is the duty of the householder to make his family members happy, and by following this tarpana system, he can make his forefathers happy also. As the perfect exemplary householder, Lord Sri Krishna followed this tarpana system and offered respectful obeisances to the elderly, superior members of his family. His next duty was to give cows in charity to the brahmanas. Every day, Lord Krishna used to give many groups of 13,084 cows. In other words, he's not just giving 13,084 cows, he's giving many groups of 13,084 cows. Each of the cows was decorated with a silken cover and pearl necklace. Their horns were covered with gold plating, and their hooves were silver-plated. All of them were full of milk due to having their firstborn calves with them, and they were very tame and peaceful. When the cows were given in charity to the brahmanas also were given nice silken garments, and each was given a deerskin and sufficient quantity of sesame seeds. The Lord is generally known as Go Brahmanya Hitaya Cha, which means that his first duty is to see to the welfare of the cows and the brahmanas. Thus, he used to give cows in charity to the brahmanas with opulent decorations and paraphernalia. Then, wishing for the welfare of all living entities, he would touch auspicious articles such as milk, honey, ghee, gold, jewels, and fire. Although the Lord is by nature very beautiful, due to the perfect figure of his transcendental body, he would dress himself in yellow garments and put on his necklace of kaustuba jewels. He would wear foul garments, smear his body with the pulp of sandalwood, and decorate himself with similar cosmetics and ornaments. It is said that the ornaments themselves became beautiful upon being placed on the transcendental body of the Lord. After decorating himself in this way, the Lord would then look at marble statues of the cow and calf and visit temples of God or demigods like Lord Shiva. There were many brahmanas who would come daily to see the Supreme Lord before taking their breakfast. They were anxious to see him, and he welcomed them. So you see how busy Krishna is in early hours of the day, right? He hasn't even gone to work yet. His next duty was to please all kinds of men belonging to the different castes, both in the city and within the palace compound. He made them happy by fulfilling their different desires, and when the Lord saw them happy, he also became very much pleased. The flower garlands, betel nuts, sandalwood pulp, and other fragrant cosmetic articles offered to the Lord would be distributed by him, first to the brahmanas and elderly members of the family, then to the queens, and then to the ministers, and if there were still some balance, he would engage it for his own personal use. By the time the Lord finished all these daily duties and activities, his charioteer, Daruka, would come with his wonderful chariot to stand before the Lord with folded hands, intimating that the chariot was ready. And the Lord would come out of the palace to travel. Then the Lord, accompanied by Uddhava and Satyaki, would ride on the chariot, just as the sun god rides on his chariot in the morning, appearing with his blazing rays on the surface of the world. When the Lord was about to leave his palaces, all the queens would look at him with feminine gestures. The Lord would respond to their greetings with smiles, attracting their hearts so much that they would feel intense separation from him. Then the Lord would go to the assembly house known as Sudharma. It may be remembered that the Sudharma assembly house was taken away from the heavenly planets and established in the city of Dwarka. The specific significance of the assembly house was that anyone who entered it would be freed from the 6 kinds of material pangs, namely hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. These are the whips of material existence, whip to hurt someone. And as long as one remained in that Sudharma assembly house, he would not be affected by these 6 material whips. The Lord would say goodbye in all the 16,000 palaces, and again he would become one and enter the Sudharma assembly house in procession with other members of the Yadu dynasty. Now that's an amazing statement. He's present as Prakasa Vigraha, perfect expansions of himself, with every one of his 16,000 plus queens in every one of the 16,000 different palaces, where there are 10 sons in each palace. And then later on, those 10 sons get married, and they produce also. So you can just imagine how populous the Yadu dynasty was in Krishna's time. Okay, so then, but when the Lord comes out to get on this chariot and go to the Sudharma assembly house, he becomes one. He's 16,000, and now he becomes one. See, so who can imitate that? Of course, the karmis will say, "Oh, that's all fantasy. It's all made up. It's just imaginative. It's not possible." Yes, it is possible. But people who are envious of the Lord, they will not accept it, that he could have so much power and so much opulence. So it says, after entering, the Lord would say goodbye in all the 16,000 palaces, and again he would become one and enter the Sudharma assembly house in procession with other members of the Yadu dynasty. After entering the assembly house, he used to sit on the exalted royal throne and would be seen to emanate glaring rays of transcendental effulgence. In the midst of all the great heroes of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna resembled the full moon on the sky, surrounded by multi-luminaries. In the assembly house were professional jokers, dancers, musicians, and ballet girls, and as soon as the Lord sat on his throne, they would begin their respective functions to please the Lord and put him in a happy mood. First of all, the jokers would talk in such a way that the Lord and his associates would enjoy their humor, which would refresh the morning mood. The dramatic actors would then play their parts, and the dancing ballet girls would separately display their artistic movements. All these functions would be accompanied by the beating of mridanga drums and the sounds of the veena, flutes, and bells, followed by the sound of the muraja, another type of drum. To these musical vibrations, the auspicious sound of the conch shell would be added. The professional singers called sutas and madagas would sing, and others would perform their dancing art In this way, as devotees, they would offer respectful prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes the learned brahmanas present in that assembly would chant Vedic hymns and explain them to the audience to the best of their accounts of the activities that are prominent, to the best of their knowledge, and sometimes some of them would recite old historical accounts of the activities of prominent kings. The Lord, accompanied by his associates, would be very much pleased to hear them. This is all before they actually begin the business of the government. You say, just imagine how wonderful this is, you know. Okay, we'll stop right there. And we're going to continue reading Lord's daily activities, because it's nectar. And we need nectar to get rid of the poison that enters our mind all day long. Are there any questions?
So Maharaj, you explained about the...
Louder.
So you explained a little bit about the Tarpana system, but I'm still like not very clear. So will you be elaborate a little bit? Because what I was, when I was listening, I was trying to understand that, and it says we should respect to the demigods as per these things. So is it not applicable to the devotees, because we say that, okay, I mean demigod, and how do we respect when it comes to, when you say respect to the demigods, how do we respect? What is meant by respect? And
well, you respect them. The way to worship the demigods is first offer food to Krishna, and then when Krishna offers it back as prasadam, you offer it to the demigods. That's the way you respect the demigods, with Krishna prasadam.
not directly, but indirectly like this.
Huh?
I mean, not directly, respectfully.
No,
not
that is,
indirectly.
you're directly giving them Krishna prasadam, just like you come here and you get directly prasadam. Krishna prasadam. It's not just food, it's Krishna prasadam. So that's the way Vaishnavas respect the demigods in the home. And then tarpana is you invite minimum tarpana. You invite 3 Vaishnavas to your house and you feed them. And then when they eat, your ancestors get the benefit. And the better tarpana is you sponsor a feast, a Sunday feast, where many Vaishnavas come and many other people come, and they all serve prasadam. That's the best way to feed and benefit your ancestors. Okay? The Vedic traditional way of doing tarpana is very complicated, and so Prabhupada, gave us a simplified version of it that you can actually do. You can actually do it frequently. That's why we have Sunday feasts and every day is a feast day, so you can sponsor any day where Vaishnavas are going to be fed. Okay, or you can invite some Vaishnavas to your house and feed them. Okay, and respecting the demigods is very simple. You offer them Krishna prasadam, and they're very pleased. So when you offer them Krishna prasadam, then they bless you to advance in Krishna consciousness. If you worship them individually for material desires, they actually curse you by giving material facilities to you, which convinces you to stay in the material world and suffer more. See? So they can act in both ways. They can help you stay in the material world and suffer more, or they can bless you to become Krishna conscious. Okay? Yeah. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Someone asked, why was Krishna meditating on himself?
It was explained there, because he is the Brahma Jyoti, he is Paramatma, and he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So who else is he going to meditate on? Is he going to meditate on George Bush or Obama or Trump, or is he going to meditate on himself? He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But we should not imitate that because we're not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, we should meditate on Radha Krishna. Okay? All right. No more questions? We'll have Aarti for Srila Prabhupada. Guru Puja. Okay. What was the homework? I'm sorry. Go ahead. So we're going piece by piece of the Adi Leela, chapter 4. Yeah, it has to be quick. So homework for tomorrow is to read what we just read and explain what are the things that Krishna does in the Brahma Muhurta that are impossible for us to do. And what are the things that he does in the Brahma Muhurta that we can do? Like one example, in Brahma Muhurta, he says goodbye to all his wives, 16,000 wives, and he becomes one, although he's 16,000. Now, we can't do that, right? So that's one thing. Okay? Haribol, go ahead.
So homework, first 10 verses from chapter 4 are the Leela, explained in brief. The essence for the first 10 verses, so for two reasons, Krishna descends as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as Bhakta Vatsal devotee. For two reasons, that internal reason is to taste the nectar of devotional service, and external reason is to spread Harinam Sankirtan and love of God. This summarizes the first 10 verses.
Good. Haribol. Is that two internal reasons or two external reasons?
So two reasons. One is the internal reason, is to taste the nectar of devotional service, and the second one is the external reason, to spread Harinam Sankirtan and love of Godhead.
Okay, good. Thank you. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bandhamui Savadanama Te Bandhamui Savadanama Te Janara Prasade Bhai Eva Vatoriya Jai Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite Guru Mukha Padma Vaikya Chitete Goriya Aranakoriya Manaya Sa Aranakoriya Manaya Sa Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttamagati Ye prasade pure sarva asa Ye prasade pure sarva asa Chakshudana dilaje janame janme Prabhu se Divya Jnani de Prokasito Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vina Sajate Vedika Janara Charito Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu Lokenat Lokera Jivana Lokenat Lokera Jivana Ah Prabhu Kura Doya Deha More Padachaya Ha Prabhu Kura Doya Deha More Padachaya Lokena Lokera Jivana Lokena Ebeas Kusakchi Bhuvana Ha Prabhu Koradoya Deha More Padachaya Ebeas Kusakchi Bhuvana Ebeas Kusakchi Bhuvana Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namah. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Utkatya Desatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Statara Satara Shri Shimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Shri Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Ki Jai. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. Not only to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth, attachment to his lotus feet is perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed.
The Vedic scriptures saying of his character, our spiritual master will give us the mercy, friendly poor Lord, the master of the devotees. The master be merciful unto us. Give us the share of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the world.